Okay, let's jump straight in today. We're looking at something really serious, that attack back on April 22nd, 2025.
Right, in the Baisaran Valley, Pahalgam, in Kashmir.
Exactly. And the targeting of non-Muslim tourists, the scale of it, 26 killed, more than 20 injured, it's grimly significant.
It really is. Reminiscent in terms of civilian impact of the 2008 Mumbai attacks, which is saying something.
Definitely. So our goal here for this deep dive is to try and get beneath those initial headlines, right?
Precisely. We want to pull together what the different news reports and accounts are saying, give you the context, the key takeaways, without, just throwing everything at you at once.
It's important context because Kashmir, well, it's known for such stunning beauty.
It is, which makes this kind of violence feel even more jarring, doesn't it?
It does. A really harsh reminder of the tensions that just, well, persist there. So let's unpack it. What do we know happened right after the attack?
Okay, so responsibility was claimed pretty quickly by a group called the Resistance Front, TRF.
TRF. And sources describe them as an offshoot group.
Yeah, seemingly connected to or emerging from Lashkar-e-Taiba. That's the older, more established militant group with known links to Pakistan.
Which, unsurprisingly, led India to point fingers directly at Pakistan almost immediately. Strong condemnation followed.
Very strong. And it wasn't just words. India took some pretty bold, aggressive steps.
Right. I saw those reports. They revoked all visas for Pakistani citizens.
Correct. All visas revoked. Key border crossings were shut down, too.
And maybe the biggest move, suspending the Indus Waters Treaty.
Uh-huh. That's the really big one. A treaty that's been in place for, over 60 years?
Yeah. Governing how they share river water, suspending that. What's the thinking there, the likely impact?
Well, it's a massive escalation. Our sources really emphasize that. This treaty, fragile as it sometimes was, has been a vital mechanism.
So Pakistan's reaction must have been strong.
Immediate. They warned that suspending the treaty could even be seen as an act of war. That shows you how critical water is there.
Wow. And did they respond to the accusation about the attack itself?
They denied any involvement, vehemently. And they called for an independent international investigation to figure out who was actually behind it.
So huge diplomatic tension. Meanwhile, what was happening inside Kashmir?
A significant crackdown on the ground. Reports mention over 1,500 detentions, a very large number.
1,500?
Okay.
And also reports of homes being bulldozed.
Yes, that controversial tactic targeting the homes of suspected militants or their families. That seems to have returned.
Plus more security, generally.
Definitely. Increased roadblocks, much more visible surveillance throughout the region, a real tightening of the security apparatus.
And you have to ask, what does that kind of intense crackdown mean for the average person living there?
Well, it inevitably impacts daily life for ordinary Kashmiris, as you expect. Sources suggest they often get caught up in it all.
Just trying to go about their business?
Exactly. And we're seeing reports pointing to a definite rise in fear. Also, unfortunately, more harassment.
Harassment targeting who specifically?
It seems to be affecting Kashmiri students, laborers, shopkeepers, both within Kashmir and significantly also in other parts of India.
So a spillover effect across the country, driven by suspicion after the attack.
It seems that way. Anxiety and suspicion leading to Kashmiris elsewhere facing difficulties.
There was that quote, wasn't there, from a student? Really stark.
Yes, the one who spoke to Al Jazeera. It was powerful. They said, "We are cursed."
Yeah.
Cursed to live in a paradise that feels like a prison.
A paradise that feels like a prison.
Ugh.
That just cuts right through, doesn't it? Captures that sense of being trapped.
It really does. And it highlights why understanding the history here is so crucial. This didn't just happen in a vacuum.
No, absolutely not. We need to touch on that longer history, that context. Where does it really begin?
You have to go back to 1947. The partition of British India, that's the flashpoint.
When Kashmir's status was left unresolved, essentially.
Right. A princely state, majority Muslim population, but its ruler at the time was Hindu. He opted to join India, but Pakistan contested it immediately. Both countries ended up controlling parts of it, claiming all of it.
And neither has ever controlled the whole region since.
Never fully. And that initial division, well, it set the stage for decades of conflict.
Including actual wars, right?
3 major wars fought between India and Pakistan, specifically over Kashmir.
And alongside the wars, there have been attempts at peace, political agreements.
There have periods of dialogue, attempts at normalization, But the pattern, tragically, has often been progress followed by renewed violence. It's a deeply entrenched cycle.
With deep roots and grievances on both sides, no doubt.
Absolutely. Which makes the international reaction to this latest crisis even more important to watch.
So what are other countries saying? We heard Pakistan calling for an international probe.
Well, the responses are varied. Iran, for instance, has offered to mediate. They have an interest in regional stability.
Okay. What about, say, the U.S.?
The U.S. urged restraint from both sides, which is pretty standard, but underlines the global concern, especially given the nuclear dimension.
Right. Both India and Pakistan are nuclear powers. That always raises the stakes.
Hugely. And the UN has also weighed in, calling for peace talks, a return to dialogue.
So a mix of offers to help and calls for calm. What does that tell us overall?
It tells us the world is worried. It underscores how dangerously low the trust levels are between India and Pakistan right now. Any spark could potentially lead to something much bigger.
It's not just a regional issue, then. The implications are global.
Definitely. The potential ramifications are very real for everyone.
Amidst all this, the tension, the crackdowns, the diplomatic rows, it's easy to forget about daily life.
It is, but it's important not to. Our sources do remind us that, life goes on for most people.
In the villages, the markets.
Exactly. People are working, farming, looking after their families. There's a remarkable resilience there, a human capacity to just carry on.
Despite everything.
Despite incredibly difficult circumstances.
And are there any signs, even small ones, pointing towards something more positive? Any glimmers of hope?
Well, it's hard, but you could maybe point to things like infrastructure development, that new high-speed train, the Kashmir-Srinagar Vande Bharat Express.
Ah, yes, the train connecting the region better.
Right. It was recently inaugurated. Now, you can frame that as just development, but it is a symbol, perhaps, of improved connectivity. Maybe a small sign aiming for a different kind of future.
A small sign, perhaps, amidst a very bleak picture overall right now.
Very bleak, yes. Which leaves us, and you listening, with some big questions, really.
Like, where does it go from here? Will these tensions lead anywhere productive, like dialogue?
Or are we just seeing a further slide into conflict? It feels very uncertain. The path forward isn't clear at all.
And behind all the politics, the strategy, the history, we have to remember the people.
Always. Behind every headline, every statistic, there are individual lives, families, just people wanting peace, like anywhere else.
That universal desire.
Kashmir, as we said at the start, it's just stunningly beautiful. A land too beautiful to bleed.
And yet,
it does, continuously.
So for you listening, if you want to understand more, maybe consider digging into that long history we touched upon.
And really try to seek out the perspectives of the Kashmiri people themselves, hear their voices in all this. It adds a crucial dimension.